The unexpected war. The sky was peaceful that morning. Bright light from the twin suns fell gently over the green hills of Calmaris, a colony world known for its silence and beauty. Birds flew through the clouds, and the soft wind made the tall grass dance. No one expected war. No one thought death would come from the sky. Rylan, a young human engineer, stood outside a crashed hover truck, fixing a broken energy panel. He had come to Calmaris on a tech mission, just a simple maintenance job. He never carried weapons. He didn't even wear armor. Just tools on his belt and a datapad in his hand. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked up. And that's when he saw the fire. It came from the sky. Sharp red trails cutting through the clouds. Ships. Dozens of them. Fast and dark. They weren't human. And they weren't friendly. Then came the first explosion. Boom. The ground shook. The peaceful sky turned black with smoke. Panic started to spread. People screamed. Alarms rang through the colony. Buildings crumbled as energy bombs fell from above. Raylan dropped his tools and ran. He didn't know where to go, just away from the fire. Away from the falling arrows of death. But as he turned into an alley between two damaged buildings, he heard something strange, a small cry, not human. He stopped and looked around. Behind a broken stack of metal crates, something moved. Rylan slowly stepped closer, careful not to scare it. And then he saw her. An alien girl. She looked young, maybe his age or a little younger. Her skin was a light violet shade, her silver hair dusty and tangled. Her golden eyes were wide with fear. She had no armor, no weapon, just a torn dress and bruises on her arms. She was curled up, hiding, shaking. Rylan didn't move. The girl looked up at him, terrified. Her lips trembled. She didn't speak. She thought he might hurt her. "I'm not going to harm you," Rylan said softly, raising both hands. "You're safe. I'm human. You need help." The girl didn't answer, but her eyes, full of fear, blinked once, then twice. Slowly she nodded. A loud blast shook the wall next to them. More dust fell from above. Raylan reached out his hand. "Come on," he said. "We have to move." The alien girl hesitated, and then placed her hand in his. He pulled her out, keeping his body between her and the falling chaos. The colony was breaking apart. Ships landed, and strange warriors in armor poured out. Aliens with long arms, dark eyes, and spiked spears. They moved like hunters, and they were looking for something, or someone. Rylan ran, pulling the girl behind him. He didn't know where to go, but he knew he had to keep moving. They passed burning houses, broken machines, and lifeless bodies. Arrows flew through the air, sharp and fast. Some missed by inches. Then, as they reached a fallen building for cover, a whistle cut the air. Rylan's ears picked it up too late. He turned around just in time to see 3 arrows flying straight at the girl. There was no time to think. Raylan shouted and threw himself in front of her. Thud. Thud. Pain exploded through his shoulder and side. The world spun. He hit the ground hard. Blood soaked his shirt. His body screamed, but he stayed conscious. The girl stared at him in shock. Her hands shook. She moved to touch the arrows, but he grabbed her wrist. "Don't," he said with a weak smile. "I'm still alive." The attackers shouted in the distance. More were coming. The girl leaned close, her golden eyes full of panic. She whispered something in her language, a song-like sound he didn't understand. But the feeling was clear. She didn't want him to die. I had to protect you," Rylan whispered. "You were all alone." And then everything went dark. The arrow storm. Rylan's eyes opened slowly. Everything was blurry. His ears rang like broken alarms. His body felt heavy, like he was trapped under water. Pain pulsed through his side and shoulder. The arrows were gone, but the pain stayed. He blinked, trying to understand where he was. Above him, the sky was no longer blue. It was red. Smoke floated like ghosts across the air. The sweet wind of Calmaris was now filled with the smell of burning metal and blood. Then he saw her. The alien girl sat beside him, gently pressing soft green leaves onto his wounds. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were focused. She had taken off a piece of her dress and was using it as a bandage. A soft blue light came from a small stone in her hand. It glowed brighter each time it touched his skin. Rylan groaned. Girl looked at him and gasped, then quickly placed a finger on his lips. SSHH. She whispered. Her voice was light, like wind through wind chimes. You saved me. Her words were broken, accented but clear. She was trying her best to speak his language. I didn't think you spoke English, Rylan mumbled. I learn a little. Humans came before. Rylan nodded slightly then. Winston Payne. I took arrows, he said weakly, half laughing. 3, I think. Yes, bad ones, she replied softly. With poison, but I clean. Thanks, he whispered. What's your name? She paused for a moment. Then, placing a hand on her chest, she said, Alira. Rylan, he answered. Another loud explosion shook the ground nearby. Alira's head turned sharply. Her long ears twitched. She grabbed a small curved blade from her side, a weapon hidden in her boots. She looked back at Rylan. We must go. They come. Who? Rylan asked, trying to sit up. Alira helped him slowly. Hunters, paid killers, they chase me. Rylan's eyes narrowed. Why you? She didn't answer immediately. Her hands moved quickly, tying the last bandage around his arm. Finally, she looked into his eyes. I was supposed to die. Like my family, but I ran. Then he understood. She was royalty. Or someone important. That's why the hunters wanted her. Rylan clenched his jaw. Then they'll come again. Alira nodded. Always. He forced himself to stand, using a piece of metal as a crutch. His legs trembled, but he stayed upright. We need to hide, he said. Somewhere they can't find you. No, Alira said firmly. They will search everywhere. We must fight or die. Rylan stared at her, surprised by her strength. She was small, fragile-looking, but inside she had fire. Then we'll fight smart, he said. We set traps, make noise, confuse them. She tilted her head, curious. I know tech, Rylan explained. Even broken tech can be deadly if you use it right. For the next hour, Rylan and Alira worked together inside the ruins of a destroyed building. Rylan found loose wires, old drone cores, and broken energy cells. He built flash bombs using scrap and chemicals, and set up pressure plates from destroyed transport vehicles. Alira moved quietly, like a shadow. She climbed walls, scattered debris to leave false trails, and placed metal shards to reflect light and confuse sensors. As the sun set, the sky turned orange-red, and the real storm began. The hunters arrived. They were tall, masked, armored in black scales. Their arms were long and their hands sharp. Each carried bows with glowing arrowheads and blades shaped like claws. They made no sound when they walked, only the wind moved. But as they entered the trap zone, boom! A loud flash blinded 2 of them. Crack! An electric shock trap zapped another through the chest. He dropped, twitching. The others roared in a strange language. They scattered, looking for the attackers. From above, Alira dropped a burning crate right into their center. It exploded, sending fire and smoke through the ruins. In the chaos, Rylan and Alira moved like ghosts. He used a broken shield emitter to block a direct hit. She slashed one hunter from behind, swift and silent. But then, a whistle cut the air. Another arrow flew, this one aiming for Rylan again. But this time, Alira jumped in front of him. Rylan shouted, "No!" But the arrow missed them both. It hit a wall and exploded behind them, throwing them forward. They rolled to safety behind a rock. Breathing hard, Rylan looked at Alira. You just saved me. You saved me first, she said. Another explosion rocked the ruins. The remaining hunters began to pull back. Some were injured, others confused. The traps had worked, but it wasn't over. One last hunter stood tall, scanning the area. His armor was heavier, his movements more careful. His eyes glowed red behind the mask. He was the leader. He saw Alira, and he smiled beneath his helmet. He raised a hand. A tracker on his wrist began to blink. Rylan noticed. What did he do? Alira's eyes went wide. He marked us. A soft beep began to echo from the device. Rylan's stomach dropped. He called for more. The healing bond. The night was cold. Too cold. Rylan's breath came in short bursts as he lay on the rocky floor of a dark cave. His body burned with pain, every muscle screaming, but he refused to sleep. He was afraid that if he closed his eyes, he wouldn't wake up again. Outside, the sky was still glowing from fires across the valley. Black smoke floated above what used to be the peaceful colony of Calmaris. The hunters had marked them, and more were coming. They had barely escaped with their lives. Now they were hiding deep inside an old cave system that Alira remembered. From childhood, a forgotten place, covered in vines and shadows, known only to her people. It smelled of moss and whetstone. Alira knelt beside him, dipping a cloth into a glowing blue liquid from a carved stone bowl. This is life water, she sighed quietly. It is very old. My people used it to heal. Rylan didn't argue. He didn't have the strength. He just gritted his teeth as she pressed the cloth against his wounds. It stung like fire, then slowly cooled. You should rest, she whispered. Can't, Rylan muttered, forcing a weak smile. I'm not sure I'll wake up. You will, Alira said gently. Because I say so. He chuckled, then winced in pain. You've gotten bossy, he said. I had to, she replied. My people used to listen when I spoke. Now no one does except you. That made Rylan pause. She dipped the cloth again, then looked at him. My name means light from broken skies, she said softly. But I've never felt like light, only broken. Rylan turned his head slightly to face her. The firelight danced on her silver hair and violet skin. She looked tired, but stronger than ever. You're not broken, he said. You're still standing. That means something. Alira blinked slowly, surprised by his words. She looked away, trying to hide her expression, but he saw the warmth in her eyes. Why did you save me, Rylan? She asked after a moment. You didn't even know me. He thought about it. I saw someone who needed help, he said honestly. I didn't think. I just did what felt right. She nodded slowly, then leaned forward and pressed her forehead lightly against his. In my culture, she whispered. This is a promise. Rylan froze. A promise? Yes, that I will protect you. Just as you protected me. His heart skipped a beat. No one had ever done that for him. Not in his whole life. The next day, they moved deeper into the caves. Rylan could walk now slowly. Alira helped him, her arm wrapped around his waist. The pain was still there, but the life water had done something. He felt stronger than before. As they walked, they talked. Not just about survival, but about everything. Rylan told her about Earth, about the blue oceans, the smell of rain, the noise of cities. She listened with wide eyes, smiling at every strange detail. Your world sounds loud, she said. It is, Rylan laughed. But also beautiful. Alira told him about her people, the Ellerin. How they used to live in the light, singing to the stars until betrayal broke their peace. Her family was royalty once, but now only she remained. My uncle wanted the throne, she said bitterly. He sold our location to the hunters. They came during the night. I ran. I still hear the screams. Rylan didn't speak. He just held her hand. They rested beside an underground pool. It shimmered with strange lights. Alira knelt beside it and touched the surface. The water showed moving images. Like memories, Rylan watched as glowing shapes formed. A tall woman with silver hair, a golden throne, a burning tower. A child hiding under silk sheets. A young Alira, this pool remembers. She said, "It shows what once was." Rylan stared at the images. "That's your mother?" Alira nodded. She sang to the stars. "I wish you could have met her." Rylan looked at her. "She would have been proud of you." That made Alira close her eyes. For a moment she was silent, then she turned to him and said, "We must go to the temple, the old one." "Temple?" he asked. "Yes, it's hidden far from here, deep in the mountains. It holds the bloodstone, a crystal that proves royal blood. If I can reach it, maybe I can call for help." Rylan nodded. "Then we go to the temple." Alira looked at him with surprise. "Even after all the arrows? The pain?" He smiled. "Alira, I already promised to protect you. And I don't break promises." She looked at him for a long moment. Her expression softened. "You are strange." "Rylan, I get that a lot." As they packed to leave, Alira handed him a small object. It looked like a necklace with a blue crystal in the center. "This is my family crest," she said. "I want you to have it." Rylan hesitated. "I can't. You already carry my trust," she said. "Now you carry my name." He looked at the crystal dot, and for the first time since the war began, he felt like he wasn't just surviving. He was part of something bigger, the escape. Through shadows, the jungle wasn't quiet anymore. What once had been filled with soft bird calls and wind through the leaves now felt tense, every branch like a spear, every rustle like a whisper of death. Shadows moved in every direction. The light barely touched the forest floor. Rylan's boots sank into the mud with every step. Sweat dripped down his neck. His arm was still wrapped in bandages, pain pulsing with each movement. But he didn't stop. Alira walked ahead, her silver hair tied back, her blade in hand, and her eyes scanning the trees. Her senses were sharper than his, trained, focused. This was no longer just a journey. It was survival. Behind them, something growled. Rylan turned his head sharply. Leaves moved, but nothing came out. "They're getting closer," he whispered. "Yes," Alira said. "They follow our heat, not our sound." "Great," Rylan muttered. "So being quiet doesn't help." "It helps a little," she replied with a small smirk. "But not enough." They moved quickly through vines, branches, and foggy undergrowth. The path wasn't real. It was made as they went. No roads. No map. Just instinct and memory. "We're heading east," Alira said. "The temple is hidden beyond the echo cliffs. If we reach the narrow pass before nightfall, we'll have a chance." "A chance at what?" Rylan asked. "Not dying." "Right, that's always nice." Suddenly, they heard it click. Rylan froze. Under his foot, a small plate had shifted. Alira's eyes widened. "Don't move." From the branches above, a long spear swung downward. Without thinking, Alira shoved Rylan to the side. Crack. The spear hit a tree instead of his skull. He groaned from the fall. "They trapped the path." "Yes," she said, breathing hard. "They're smarter than I thought. We'll need to be smarter." They pressed forward, more carefully now. Alira showed him how to look for signs, small marks on trees, disturbed soil, the strange hum of hidden scanners. Together, they began to dismantle a few of the traps, Rylan using wires and magnets, Alira using speed and instinct. They started laying traps of their own behind them. A pressure vine here. A camouflaged pit there. A dangling net filled with sharp thorns. If the hunters wanted to follow, they'd pay a price. By midday, they reached a stream. The water looked clean, but Alira checked it carefully, dropping a green stone inside. When it stayed clear, she nodded. They drank quickly, filling small canisters with water. As they rested, Rylan looked around. "Why does this place feel haunted?" Alira was silent for a moment. Then she pointed to the trees above. Rylan followed. her finger and gasped. Dozens of small hand-carved wooden masks hung from the branches. Faces with empty eyes, long frowns, sharp teeth. These are warning signs, she said. The forest spirits of my people. When too many die in one place, we leave masks to keep their memories. How many died here? Raylan asked. Enough, Elira whispered. This is where my father fell. He looked at her gently. You don't have to talk about it. I do, she said, because I want someone to remember. She sat on a stone and stared at the stream. He led a group of warriors to stop the first wave of hunters. They were outnumbered. He knew they wouldn't survive. But they fought anyway, to protect me and my mother. I'm sorry, Raylan said quietly. Elira turned to him. You remind me of him. Brave, stubborn, too kind. Raylan smiled faintly. That sounds like a compliment, I think. She laughed softly for the first time that day. It didn't last. A distant screech echoed through the trees. They were found. Raylan and Elira shot up. They're calling each other, she said. They split up. They're hurting us. Then, we break the herd, Raylan said. We don't run the way they want, we go straight up. Elira raised an eyebrow. Up? He pointed to the rocky cliffs ahead. You said the temple is beyond the Echo Cliffs, right? We climb early. It's the last thing they'd expect. She smiled. You think like a hunter now. Let's just hope I climb like one. The climb was brutal. The rocks were sharp and slippery. The sun beat down through broken clouds, and the hunters' calls were not far behind. Raylan's arms burned as he pulled himself up. Elira moved like she belonged to the mountain, fast, focused, quiet. Halfway up, arrows flew again. Thunk! One hit just below Raylan's foot. He nearly slipped, but Elira grabbed his wrist. Don't fall, she said. Wasn't planning to. Thunk! Another arrow grazed his leg. He winced. They really don't like me. They fear you, she said. Because you protect. He smiled through the pain. Guess I'm earning every scar. Finally, they reached the top. Breathing hard, covered in dirt and blood, they looked out over the jungle. Far in the distance, the outline of a silver spire peaked above the clouds. That's the temple, Elira whispered. But Raylan was already looking back. The hunters had reached the base of the cliff. More were coming. The secret temple. The wind howled at the top of the cliffs. It wasn't like normal wind. It had a sound, a song, almost like whispers. Raylan stood at the edge, staring down the steep wall they had just climbed. Below, the jungle looked endless. The trees like a sea of green and smoke. But above them, at last, was silence. And in the silence stood something ancient, a silver spire, tall and graceful, hidden by clouds and vines. The structure looked like a spear reaching toward the sky. Its walls were smooth, glowing with soft blue lines, pulsing like a heartbeat. The Temple of the Ellerin. Elira stood beside him, her hand over her chest. Her eyes were wide, filled with emotion. I never thought I'd see it again, she said softly. Raylan didn't speak. He could feel the power in the air, something old, something watching. The stones under their feet vibrated gently, as if remembering her presence. As they stepped closer, the temple opened. Not with doors. But with light. A soft beam scanned Elira's body, then split into two glowing paths, guiding them inward. Raylan blinked. It recognizes you. It remembers my blood, she whispered. It only opens for one of my line. They followed the glowing path inside. The air turned cool. Quiet. Sacred. The temple was unlike anything Raylan had ever seen. It wasn't made by tools. It was grown. The walls curved like flower petals, and floating crystals hovered in the air, humming softly. Strange glyphs glowed faintly, words in the Ellerin language. Raylan stopped near a large circular chamber. In the center was a pedestal, and above it, suspended in the air, was a red crystal, shaped like a tear. It pulsed gently with light. The bloodstone, Alira said. She stepped forward slowly. Her fingers shook as she reached out. The moment her skin touched the crystal flash, a beam of red light exploded from the stone and struck the ceiling. Glyphs on the walls lit up. The floating crystals spun in circles. The air shimmered, and then in the center of the room, a hologram appeared. A woman with silver hair, graceful, strong. Her voice filled the temple. "My daughter. If you are hearing this, then I am gone," Alira gasped. "Mother, I leave this message to you, child of my line. The day you touch this stone is the day your path begins. The throne was taken by traitors, but the heart of our people still lies scattered, hiding, waiting for your return. You must carry the flame. You must rebuild, but never alone." The hologram turned. "And you, human." "Thank you," Raylan's eyes widened. "What the? You, who come from another world, yet bleed for ours, you are rare. You are needed. You are chosen." The light faded. The room fell quiet. Alira turned to him slowly. "She knew," she whispered. "She knew someone like you would come." Raylan rubbed his neck. "I'm just a tech guy." "No," Alira said. "You're the spark. Without you, I wouldn't be here. Without you, I wouldn't be me." Outside the temple, things were changing. The hunters had reached the cliff base, but now they waited. Why? Because their leader had arrived, a tall, armored alien with a half-mask of bone and metal. His name was Karnas, the traitor's blade. He served Alira's uncle, and he had only one goal: to kill the last blood heir. He raised a clawed hand, and a swarm of tracking drones lifted into the air. Red lights blinked. They began scanning the cliffs. Inside the temple, Rylan and Alira stood before an old interface. "This map," Rylan said. "It shows other Ellerin cities?" "Yes," Alira replied. "Some may still survive. If I use the bloodstone here, I can send a beacon. Will they come?" "They will. If they believe it's truly me." Rylan nodded. "Then let's make them believe." Alira pressed her palm to the interface. The bloodstone glowed brighter. A high-pitched hum filled the room. Runes on the floor lit up in a circle around them. Suddenly, bang, the temple shook. Rylan turned. "What was that?" "They're here," Alira said. Her voice tensed. Another explosion rocked the wall. The glowing path that had led them in flickered. "They're breaking the outer shell," Rylan said. "We're trapped." Alira took a deep breath. "Then we fight. This is our place, our last stand." He looked at her, no fear in her eyes. "Just fire." Raylan smiled and pulled out the only weapon he had, a repurposed energy tool he had modified earlier. Not a real gun, but it would burn if aimed right. "Let's give them something to remember," he said. Alira reached beside the pedestal and pulled out a hidden compartment. Inside, a staff. Old, gold-trimmed, humming with ancient power. "They'll wish they never came here," she whispered. Outside, Karnas stepped forward. "Blow the doors," he growled. The hunters placed charges. A high whine grew, then a flash boom. The entrance collapsed. And through the smoke, two shadows stepped out. One human, one air. Both ready. The final confrontation. The air was thick with smoke. Not the kind that stings your eyes, but the kind that wraps around your chest, making it hard to breathe. The kind that says this might be your last moment. Alira stepped forward first. Her golden staff hummed in her hands, pulsing with light from the bloodstone deep inside the temple. Her silver hair whipped around her face as wind rushed through the broken doorway. Beside her, Raylan limped forward, holding a cracked energy tool that sparked with every step. He was bleeding, exhausted, but he stood tall. Down the temple steps, the enemy waited, a line of black-armored hunters, masks like skulls, eyes glowing red. And in front of them all stood Kornas. Tall, silent, his armor thick like a machine. A jagged Blade rested in one hand, still stained from past kills. His voice rumbled through the smoke. "You should have stayed dead, princess." Illyra raised her chin. "I did die, Karnas. But someone brought me back." Karnas tilted his head. "A human, how pathetic." Raylan stepped forward. "You're talking a lot for someone about to lose." Without warning, Karnas raised his hand and snapped his fingers. The hunters rushed forward. The final battle had begun. Illyra leapt into motion. The staff glowed bright as she spun it through the air. With one swing, a wave of force knocked 2 hunters off their feet. Her movements were graceful, like a dance. But behind the beauty was power raw and ancient. Raylan crouched low, blasting his energy tool at a charging hunter. Sparks flew. The attacker screamed and fell back. But another came. And another. He used his old training, quick thinking, fast hands. Grabbed a metal plate and used it as a shield. Dodged an arrow. Slammed his knee into a hunter's face. But they kept coming. A sharp blade cut across his side. He fell. Illyra screamed. "Raylan!" Karnas stepped through the crowd, slow and steady, eyes locked on her. "You think you are ready," he said. "But you're still just a girl pretending to be queen." Illyra clenched her jaw and lifted the staff. Karnas charged. Their weapons clashed his jagged blade against her glowing staff. Sparks exploded. The sound echoed through the temple like thunder. He struck with brute force. She answered with speed. She dodged left, slammed her staff into his leg. He stumbled, but did not fall. Karnas grabbed her by the arm and threw her against a wall. She hit hard. Pain shot through her body. He walked toward her, blade raised. "I killed your father," he growled. "I'll enjoy killing you too." Before he could strike, crack. A blast hit Karnas in the back. Raylan bleeding. Wounded. Barely. Standing, but his hand was steady. Karnas roared and turned. He charged at Raylan, swinging hard. Raylan raised his weapon too slow, but Illyra was already up. She jumped, staff spinning, and struck Karnas in the chest with full force. Boom! A pulse of golden light exploded from the staff. Karnas flew back, smashing into a stone pillar. His blade dropped from his hand. He gasped, smoke rising from his chest plate. Illyra walked slowly toward him. "You killed my family," she said. "But you won't kill my future." Karnas reached for his belt one last trick, too late. She stabbed the staff into the ground. The temple responded. Red light poured from the walls. Energy wrapped around Karnas. The ancient defense system activated, sensing enemy blood. He screamed as the light swallowed him. Then silence. He was gone. The remaining hunters looked up. Their leader was dust. They dropped their weapons and fled. Illyra ran to Raylan. He was on his knees, coughing, blood on his lips. "Hey," he said with a weak smile. "Did we win?" She held his face. "Yes, because of you." He laughed softly. "I need a nap. You need healing." "I'll take both." She pressed her forehead against his, just like she had before. But this time, it meant more. This time, it meant everything. That night, the temple lit up like a star. The beacon had been sent. Across distant stars, hidden Elleran colonies saw the signal. The air was alive. The bloodline was strong. And she had returned with a protector. Not a warrior, not a king, but a human who stepped in front of flying arrows to save her. A human who earned every scar. The worth of every scar for the first time in weeks. Raylan woke up without pain. Soft light filtered in through crystal windows. Warm air brushed against his skin. The smell of flowers filled the room, sweet, calming. Somewhere nearby, birds were singing. But they were not earth birds. Their songs echoed like silver bells. He opened his eyes. The ceiling above him was curved, covered in glowing runes. Smooth stone walls shimmered with color. He was in a healing chamber inside the temple, clean, quiet, peaceful. He turned his Head dot and saw her dot Lyra dot. She sat beside him, eyes closed, humming a soft tune in her own language. Her silver hair was braided now. Her dress changed to a royal robe of white and gold. A crown rested gently on her head made of crystal, not metal. She looked like a queen, but when she opened her eyes and smiled, she looked like Lyra again. "You're awake," she said softly. "Yeah," Rylan whispered, "unless this is some weird afterlife." She laughed, a sound that made his chest warm. "You're not dead, Rylan. You're safe. We're safe." He tried to sit up, and she helped him. "How long was I out?" he asked. 3 days, she said. "The temple healed you. Slowly. You needed rest." "I thought I died." "You almost did," Lyra said, her voice quiet. "You took so many wounds, for me." He looked at her serious. "I'd do it again." She reached out and touched the side of his face. "And I'd stop you next time," she said. "You've done enough." Later that day, Lyra stood before her people. Hundreds of Ellerin had gathered outside the temple. They had followed the beacon. Some wore armor, some wore robes. All had the same look in their eyes, hope. The bloodline had returned. Lyra raised her staff and spoke in her native tongue. Her voice rang across the cliffs, strong and proud. Raylan stood behind her, dressed in fresh clothes. His wounds were still healing, but his eyes were alert. He didn't understand her words, but he understood the meaning. They were honoring her, and they were watching him. When Lyra finished, she turned to the crowd and spoke in common tongue. "This human," she said, "is not just my protector. He is the reason I stand here today. He did not fight for gold. He did not fight for glory. He fought because he saw someone who needed help." The crowd watched silently. He faced hunters, arrows, blades, and death itself, and never turned away. She paused, then extended her hand to Rylan. "He has earned our trust, our respect, and more." Raylan stepped forward slowly. The crowd bowed to him. He felt his throat tighten. I don't know what to say," Lyra smiled. "Then don't say anything. Just accept it." She placed a small golden badge on his chest, a circle with her family's crest. "You are now one of us," she said. "Not a visitor, not a guest. A guardian of the Ellerin." The crowd cheered. That night, a feast was held under the stars. Alien fruits, glowing wines, roasted creatures Raylan couldn't name, but all of it tasted like celebration. There was music, deep drums and floating, harp-like instruments that played with sound and light. Raylan sat beside Lyra, his plate half full, his heart completely full. She leaned close. "Do you miss Earth?" He thought for a moment. "Not as much as I thought I would." "Why?" He looked into her golden eyes. "Because Earth never gave me a reason to stay," he said. "But here, I found something worth fighting for." She reached under the table and gently held his hand. He looked down at their fingers. The scars on his hands were still visible, but for the first time, they didn't feel ugly. They felt earned. Later, as the stars shimmered above, Lyra walked with Rylan to the edge of the cliff where the temple beacon had once fired into the sky. She turned to him. "There's something I didn't say earlier," she whispered. "What is it?" He asked. "I wasn't supposed to survive. My people believed I was gone. So did I, but when you stood in front of those arrows, something inside me changed." She looked down. "I'm not just alive because of the bloodstone. I'm alive because of you." Raylan was quiet. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out the broken arrowhead that nearly ended him. "I kept it," he said. "Not because I hate what happened, but because it reminds me of what I gained." He held it out to her. Lyra took it gently and closed her fingers around it. Then she stepped closer and kissed him. Not fast. Not wild. But soft. Real. The stars above watched silently. The jungle below slept in peace, and the temple glowed, its walls humming gently, as if whispering a blessing, because in the end, He didn't just step in front of arrows. He stepped into her life, and that was worth every scar.